learners, welcome back to Jerrin's Lit World. First of all, let me express my gratitude to everybody who encouraged me and watched my first video on YouTube. It means a lot, and I do hope that my videos would be helpful for those who are preparing for UGC NET and otherwise for all the literature learners also. Alright, so in the previous video, we introduced ourselves to the University Wits. In this video, let us look at the first four University Wits in our list, and we will look through their major works and also what makes them apart in the scene of literature. So let's go on to the video. So the very first University Wit in our list is John Lyly. Now, I'm pretty sure that there will be one term that would come to your mind when you hear the name John Lyly. All right. So we will begin from there. But before that, I'll show you an image of John Lyly. Yes, that's John Lyly. So the first term that should come to our mind when we hear the name John Lyly is undoubtedly euphemism. Euphemism is a style of writing very popular in English literature, which is known as the ornamental form of writing. When you use very flowery language or when you ornamentalize your language when you're writing something, that is known as euphemism. And John Lyly is said to have initiated or propagated, or he is considered to be a very important figure in the field of euphemistic writing or eupheistic writing, and that is because or due to the publication of his play Euphues. So in this particular play, he uses the eupheistic language, and that is how he is associated with the eupheistic form of writing. All right. So that's one important thing about John Lyly. Now, another important play is the play titled as Campus-P. Now, I'll tell you a very brief outline of this play. Campus-P revolves around the tale of a concubine of King Alexander. So, Campus-P was brought from Persia, and she was a concubine of King Alexander. But eventually, what happened was that King Alexander fell in love with Campus-P. So much love that he wanted her portrait to be drawn. So he brings in an artist, and the artist begins to draw Campus P's portrait. But at the end, what we see is that the painter falls in love with Campus P, and Campus P too starts loving the painter. King Alexander comes to know about this affair, and he understands the love between the two lovers, and he grants them freedom and grants them permission to escape from his place, or to, he lets them be free. So that is the tale of Campus P, the play called as Campus P. It was also one of the very popular plays by John Lyly. Another important play is Sappho and Phao. Now, one of the important thing is that we know that the University Wits, they wrote during the 16th century. Now, 16th century is a period when there was a lot of political turmoil in England, because the ruler then was Queen Elizabeth, and she continued to remain unmarried. Now, an unmarried ruler is a potential threat for the kingdom, because there is no heir, or there could be disputes of who is going to succeed her. So there were numerous kinds of stories related with Queen Elizabeth, and her love affairs with many of the people. And one such tale is the major plot or the background of this particular play by the name Sappho and Phao. In this play, Sappho is symbolic of Queen Elizabeth and Phao, the Duke of Anjou. So this is in the mythical story of Sappho and Phao. What happens is that Cupid plays a very important role in uniting Sappho and Phao. In the similar manner, the play is also depicted in the similar manner. But for the then audience, they were very sure about who Sappho and Phao meant in the play. All right, then the next play is Endymion, the Man in the Moon. This play also has very much connotations with Queen Elizabeth. And in this particular play also, we can see that Queen Elizabeth is a very prominent figure. She is symbolized by various characters, and a lot of the political leaders of that time also figures as representatives through the various representational characters in the play. Now, another important aspect related with the play is that in this particular play, the poet Sidney, so Philip Sidney, appears as a character, and he appears by the name Eumenintus in this play, Endymion. So Endymion, the Man in the Moon, is a play by John Lyly, and this also has political bearings. And in this particular play, the poet Philip Sidney appears as a character, and he is named as Eumenintus. Now, the final play on our list is Midas. which is based on the historical or mythological story of the King Midas. And we're all very familiar with that mythical king and what happened to that ruler, with his obsession with wealth and gold. So that is the major plot and the summary of the play Midas. So this is the brief introduction, or this is just a brief overview through the major works of John Lyly. So if you find time, do read about all these plays. But otherwise, if you are in a hurry, at least keep all these points in your mind. Know that which is the tale, which is the play which tells of the tale of a concubine, or a play in which Queen Elizabeth is figuring. There are a number of plays. Sappho and Far falls in that. Even Endymion, the Man in the Moon, also falls in that category. So, just for one point to ponder, I want all of you to look up at this play, Endymion, the Man in the Moon, and try to see who that Man in the Moon is. It's also a historical figure, but it'll be interesting if you can find the name of the character. All right. So, I'll give that as an exercise for you. So, the next university wit in our list is George Peele. So we will begin with an image of George Peele. So that's George Peele for us. All right. So now let's look at his major works. So these are his major works. Now we'll look one by one at them. Okay. So the Arraignment of Paris, the play The Arraignment of Paris, is a eulogy on Queen Elizabeth. And this is one of the plays which was staged in the Queen's palace. So not all the plays would be staged in the Queen's palace, and hence this play was very important. And you might understand why this play was staged in the palace, because it was a eulogy on Queen Elizabeth. So when you're eulogizing somebody, when you're praising somebody, or when it is sung for the praise of the queen or the king, eventually it would be screened in the palace itself. So this play is known for screening in the palace. All right. And then comes the second play, David and Bathsheba. This is based on the biblical story of David and Bathsheba. But as I mentioned about the plays of John Lyly, or generally the plays which were published during the 16th century, all of it had political leanings to it. So through the image of David and Bathsheba, George Peele was also representing the then political scenario of England. And in the play, David represented Earl of Leicester and Bathsheba as Queen Elizabeth. So in John Lyly's play also, in Sappho and Fao, as well as Endymion, the Man in the Moon, we can see that Queen Elizabeth is a major figure. So for most of the writers of the 16th century, playwrights of 16th century, and especially with the University Wits, Queen Elizabeth was always a very important person. Like, she revolved around all the plays which were produced by them at that time. And David and Bathsheba by George Peele is important in that sense. Then the play Titus Andronicus. I'm very much sure that most of the literature students would definitely identify this play, because we always associate this play with the Bard of Avon, William Shakespeare. But this is a collaborative play that George Peele wrote with Shakespeare. Most of you might know this, but for others, let this be a new information that Titus Andronicus was a collaborative play written by George Peele and William Shakespeare. Then comes one of the most original plays, or the most praised work of George Peele, is The Old Wives' Tale. It is always considered as a very original play of George Peele, and there are a lot of criticism. There have been a lot of criticisms which were going on around this play, and it has a very interesting tale to tell. So please do take time to read through the plot of at least The Old Wives' Tale. The other plays are very important also, but just by knowing their names itself would suffice for us for the time being. But if you find enough time, please go through the plots of the play Titus Andronicus and The Old Wives' Tale. The other two plays mainly have the political scenario as their background. All right. Now, the last term, or the last writing that I've included here, is A Farewell to Arms. A Farewell to Arms is not a play, but it's a song which was written by George Peele and is dedicated to Queen Elizabeth. When we move on to the modern plays, when we move on to the Shaw of plays, G.B. Shaw, George Bernard Shaw's writing, you will come across this term arms and the man and all that. And again, this is reiterated, or you can find echoes of this particular song in the later literary works as well. So this all begins from this particular song, which was written by George Peele and is dedicated to Queen Elizabeth, and it goes by the title A Farewell to Arms. So these are the major important works of George Peele and some important things to be remembered about George Peele. We'll move on to the uh, Tom next university wit, and that is Thomas Kyd. So in my first video, I had told you about a person who is an exception among the university wits. Yes, that is Thomas Kyd. Thomas Kyd is a person who have had no university educations. He was not associated with either of the universities, but because of his writing style, because of the time period in which he wrote, and his associations with other university wits made him also be part of the group called as the university wits. So Thomas Kyd is our exception. There are a lot of interesting things to know about Thomas Kyd. Thomas Kyd also died very young. He wrote very tremendous works in his lifetime, but he was also addicted to drugs, and that was one of the reasons which took away his life at a very young age. We can see Milton referring to Thomas Kyd at a later time as the sporting kid in one of his poems, and we'll know which poem that is when we reach John Milton's poetry. All right, so we will begin with Thomas Kyd. Basically, though there are numerous works by Thomas Kyd, we will be just focusing on one important by Thomas Kyd for which he is famous. I'm sure most of you might have guessed which that work is, but before that, these are just a brief introductions to Thomas Kyd. Like I've mentioned, he had no university associations or education. Yes, and now this is one way of calling him. He was called as the English Seneca. Now we all know who Seneca is. Yes, Seneca was popular for the revenge tragedies, the Greek revenge tragedies, right? The classical writer Seneca. So if Thomas Kyd is called as the English Seneca, then there has to be some common ground, right? Thomas Kyd did write a revenge tragedy. Perhaps he is more popular and he's known for that one revenge tragedy which he wrote, and that is none other than the Spanish tragedy. Heirneimo is Heirneimo is mad again. So that subtitle is echoed in another classical work which comes at a later time. I'm very sorry for the spelling mistake that is there in the subtitle, but I will sure to mention that in the description box, and I will try to make the changes there. All right. So this play, the Spanish tragedy, is an example of a revenge tragedy, and it was a revenge tragedy which was written before Shakespeare began to write the revenge tragedies. So it is a pre-Shakespearean revenge tragedy. Like I mentioned in the first video, all the university wits were pre-Shakespeareans, and hence their works would also come before Shakespeare's works. But as I said, they were all contemporaries of Shakespeare as well. So most of their works intertwine with each other. But there are some works which you need to know where they fall. And Spanish Tragedy by Thomas Kyd is a revenge tragedy and is a pre-Shakespearean revenge tragedy. And like all other revenge tragedies, this also has a lot of major elements which you can find like madness, and there is also a play within the play in Spanish tragedy. Play within a play also appears in Shakespeare's Hamlet, which is also a revenge tragedy. So like Shakespeare's Hamlet, in Thomas Kyd's Spanish tragedy also we can see a play within a play, and elements like madness and the element of awfulness or disgust, all of these comes under which we associate with revenge tragedies also figure in Thomas Kyd's Spanish tragedy. And the subtitle, Heirneimo is Mad Again, is echoed in The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. The Wasteland comes in the 20th century. It was published in the 1900s. And that is an echo of something which was produced in the 16th century. And this is one fascination for me. As a literature student, I'm fascinated by all this interlinking that we have, all sorts of echoings and reiterations and reciprocal relationship that you can see within all the text or the literary works through the time period. And that's one thing which makes me fall in love with literature again and again. So Thomas Kyd's writings are quite a feast for us, and please do find time to read at least the Spanish tragedy, at least an abridged version of the play, because it has a very interesting plot for you. And I'm sure that for people who are very much interested in reading plays, you would love reading this. So that is Thomas Kyd for us. And the final university with whom I'm going to discuss today with you is Robert Greene. Now, Robert Greene is also a playwright, but more importantly, he was most popular for being known as a pamphleteer. So this is an example of one important pamphlet written by Robert Greene, The Art of Coney Catching. Now, this is very, I wouldn't say it has very obscene content, but of course, what it is being dealt with might not be very suitable or might not be very much acceptable for a group of readers for that matter. So, I'm not going to tell you what that is. So, let that be an element of curiosity for you. So, do go out and find what the major, what is the core message of the art of coney catching is. All right. So, this was one of the most popular pamphlet written by Robert Greene at that time. It became so popular, like it was associated. It went well with the young men and women of that particular time. Like how we say certain videos go viral nowadays. In those times, the pamphlets were like the small videos that we would be circulating, and it went really well. This particular pamphlet was very popular then. Another important aspect of Robert Greene is that he was a critic of Shakespeare. Probably we can see him as one of the first critics of Shakespeare. In one of his pamphlets, in one of his writing, he referred to Shakespeare as the abstract crow. And later he called him as the only Shakespeare in Avon. So, and he also referred to Shakespeare as Johannes Factotum. So Johannes factotum is something very important as far as literary scene is concerned, because Robert Greene referred to Shakespeare as Johannes factotum. So what is Johannes factotum? I think you should go and find that out. So I have given you, I think, four major works by now to find out Endymion, the Man in the Moon, who the Man in the Moon is, and then I also asked you to find about the element, the art of coney catching, and now Johannes factotum. I forgot which was the four things. If I remember, I'll tell you that also. So this was one. Robert Greene was one of the early critics of Shakespeare, and he called Shakespeare an abstract crow or the only Shakespeare. So don't forget that. Now, this is another play by Robert Greene, The History of Orlando Furioso. This is a historical play. That is much to remember about that play. Then comes Friar Bacon and Friar Bunky, which is also a very light-hearted play by Robert Greene. Now, this tale, it deals with the lives of the two clerks of Oxford. Now, don't get yourself misinterpreted or confused about the term clerks. They were not the clerks as we understand now, but clerks is a term which you refer to the students of Oxford. So the students of Oxford were called as clerks of Oxford. So Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay were students of Oxford University, and this particular play deals with the happenings that comes in their life and some interesting things for it. And then finally, the play Green's Vision. Green's Vision is very much important for us because it has a very interesting tale. So in Green's Vision, it is actually like a vision play. It's like a dream play, dream vision play. So in here, you see Robert Greene is in his deathbed and he's visited by three major people. First one is Chaucer. Second one, Jonathan Swift, and third, King Solomon. So Robert Greene, in his deathbed, is visited by these three eminent personalities from the past, and that makes up the plot of Green's Vision, the dream play of Robert Greene. So these are the major works of Robert Greene. Remember Robert Greene for being a pamphleteer and also for being one of the early critics of Shakespeare. All right, so today we discussed about the first four university wits in our list: John Lyly, George Peele, Thomas Kyd, and Robert Greene. I'm sure that some of the information must have been new for you. If not, please refresh your mind with whatever you have heard. Try to refresh it and reinstate it in your mind, whatever you have learned right now. And if you find it interesting to find answers for whatever I have asked you throughout my video, please do that and also mention it in the comment session. Okay, learners, so I hope that the session was very useful for you. If you have any queries, please mention it in the comment box, and I also hope to find answers for the question that I asked you in the video. Alright, so I'll see you again on the next video with the part 3 of the University Wits edition, and till then keep on reading literature, loving literature, and if you liked my video, please do like and subscribe to my channel Jerrin's Lit World. Thank you.